Deep beneath the surface, far beyond the mainstream, and somewhere between rebellion and revelation, a voice emerges from the shadows. Tonight, the Underground Nation podcast welcomes an artist who refuses to play by the rules. An artist whose very name sparks curiosity. A creator who challenges convention, questions the status quo, and isn't afraid to shake the walls while doing it. Welcome to the hot seat, Anti-Rex Prophet. Whether he's breaking expectations, pushing boundaries, or delivering his unique perspective through music and art, one thing is certain. He's not here to blend in, he's here to be heard. And tonight, we're diving deep into the mind behind the message. The stories, the struggles, the victories, and the fire that fuels the movement. So lock the doors, turn the volume up, and prepare yourself for another unforgettable ride through the underground. Now, stepping into the interview chamber, your host, the redheaded flame, the queen of controlled chaos, Feral Minx.
Welcome back to the Underground Nation podcast, where we don't just scratch the surface, we dig beneath it. I'm your host, the flame-haired force of truth and chaos, Feral Minx. Tonight's guest isn't just an artist, he's a blue-collar philosopher, a welder of steel and systems, and a man on a mission to challenge everything you think you know. Also a male. We're talking about a union steam-fitted, a workers' rights advocate, a dog rescue operator, and the man behind the labor dollar revolution. This is a man who doesn't just make music, he uses it as a weapon of awareness. His message, it's not left versus right, it's up versus down. Freedom versus slavery. And tonight, we're going there. We're talking systems, we're talking control, we're talking truth, or at least what looks like truth. So when you stop asking for permission to think, this is what you get. Buckle up, because this isn't background noise. This is a conversation. Let's get into it with the amazing and talented Thomas Freedom Jefferson. Welcome in, homie.
Thank you for the introduction.
You know, a little dyslexia. It's a motherfucker, man, I'm telling you.
I have not been interviewed before, so if I'm a little bit, choppy in the interview process, but yeah, feel free to ask me anything. You know, my name is Thomas Freedom Jefferson. That is not my given name. That is my chosen name.
Well, let's start there. What chose you to go with that name?
You know, I read a lot, and in reading some of Thomas Jefferson's writings, it really stuck out to me how anti-bank he was, anti-central bank. He's said a lot of things, a lot of quotes that really spoke to me. He was a very interesting individual. No individual is without fault, I might add, and I think that our faults almost make us special and unique in a way. I, too, am not a perfect man, but I strive to be better every day, and I just believe that Thomas Jefferson he gave a lot of intelligence, you know, he gave us writings. One of my favorite quotes by him, which is, if we allow the banks to run our currency, our children will wake up renters in a land their fathers conquered. And that has never been more true than today, you know, with housing prices. I've done some brief estimates in like how if the housing market continues to excel in the way that it has been going in an upward fashion, what that would look like for children 30 years from now. You know, if I were to have children, would they be able to purchase housing. And it increases by multiples because it doesn't just go up in a linear line. It goes up in a sloping line. It increases by multiples.
Yeah, it is amazing whenever you actually look in perspective. A lot of people don't take the time to actually research stuff. They just take it for surface value, for what they're shown. And okay, that's fact. Nobody fact checks anything anymore.
It's just, I've been working with individuals who've been looking at the housing market. They've been looking into buying housing. And I mean, just a lot of people don't really understand, like, the cause of the 2008 housing crisis. It wasn't caused in 2008. It was actually caused in 1999 when Bill Clinton was in office with the Monica Lewinsky debacle that was actually used as a smokescreen, because at the same time, simultaneously, while all that was going on, Bill Clinton repealed the Glass-Steagall Act was put in place following the Great Depression. It quite literally acted as a firewall to prevent the Wall Street banks from mixing with the producers' banks. And by repealing this act, it allowed, them to lend money to individuals who could not pay that money, superficially inflating the market and creating a crash, which allowed the banks to centralize housing into what we now see, not producer-owned houses, but corporate-owned houses. And in every instance, when we have a crash like this, it acts as like a harvesting, the centralization of power, the harvesting of power. It just, sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
It was a harvesting, just like the Great Depression was also caused by, Wall Street, by central banks. They create the problem.
Years prior, these are things that are essentially started way in advance, and these are the ripples and repercussions that come from all of that. And it's easy to kind of blame and eschew blame and responsibility for that and put it off on a black sheep, so to say, scapegoat. Yeah.
Every day, creative spirits pour their hearts into their craft, only to feel ignored. No support, no network, no real community. That's why the Boogieverse was created. A place where musicians, podcasters, artists, streamers, entrepreneurs, and creators connect, collaborate, and rise together. Stop chasing success alone. Join the Boogieverse Discord today, where creative spirits build each other up to greatness.
So before all of the philosophy, before the message, who were you growing up?
I was born to a broken home with my brother, right? And my parents were drug addicts. The police raided my house when I was 4 years old. My brother was 6, and they took them away to prison. And there was quite a lot more tragedy involved, but I'm going to give you the cliff notes. We went into foster care briefly for a few years. I was adopted by a devout Christian family, saved in essence, and but being a child of that kind of situation, it made me very hard to parent. I felt driven towards addiction from an early age. I was very, very intelligent, but I could not excel in school above applying myself in class. Briefly, my teachers did not like my smart-ass attitude. I would read the book, right? Whatever lesson we were learning, and I would never do any homework. And that really frustrated them. I just felt there wasn't a need for me to repetitively do this.
But you passed every test and no questions. Yeah, same, similar story. Yes, very. I feel you on that one.
Instead of cultivating and helping me learn more. They were like, no, you need to learn the way we want to learn.
And that's not how all brains work.
And it was very frustrating for me.
Yeah.
But, that led me to both of my brothers. So I was adopted with my biological brother, and I had another brother who was adopted as well. My parents, like, what amazing people. They adopted 3 boys back to back. And it was just an interesting. They're wonderful people, but they were very hard on me as a child, right? Trying to instill Christian values, and I was a broken child, to say the least. I come from it was a military family. My grandfather, he served in World War II and Vietnam. My uncle, I'm talking about my adopted family. I don't think of my biological family as much of a family.
Right. Blood doesn't make family.
I owe them nothing.
Right.
So I come from this military family, and I wasn't doing very well in high school, so I dropped out, and I took my GED, and I joined the Army at 17 years old.
Wow.
That was an eye-opener for me. That really presented me with a whole different perspective on reality, especially deploying to Iraq in 2010.
I could imagine, talking about a broken child and then just childhood and then just throwing into, real world broken government and war and everything.
Well, I grew up thinking that the United States Armed Forces was patriotic. I watched World War II documentaries with my father. I was very well tuned into the history, alleged history. And,
right.
Joining the military with that patriotic mindset was an eye-opener with somebody who has logic and just an innate understanding of things around him. We were not there for any patriotic reason. We would deliver cash to these people on a bi-weekly basis, just suitcases of cash, and I could not understand why we were funding the terrorists that we were supposed to be stopping. One of the only Iraqi individuals that I met that had a conscience, that wanted to go against the corruption, was assassinated during my deployment. And that was just really, really eye-opening to me. This police chief was speaking out. They were robbing. So the representative above him in the Iraqi police was stealing their oil and gas and food shipments from the United States Armed Forces that we were giving this local police chief, and then this individual was selling it back to them to fund his mansion. Like, how ridiculous.
Oh my goodness. So is this kind of like the beginning of where you really realize that the corruption in our government and within politics, period?
It was a step in the right direction. Like I said, I was a very patriotic soldier. I loved my country. And here we are. We're like finally going to do some good and get some of these corrupt individuals off the street. I mean, for the most part, you catch the low-level ones, and it's a catch and release, because we would put them in an Iraqi detention center, and all of their family members were involved in the Iraqi police, so they would just get released immediately. And here we're, supposedly going to get at one of the upper individuals in this corrupt infrastructure, and on our way to go confront the individual in question, the man that was essentially snitching on him was assassinated by an IED. And it just...
Imagine that.
It floored me, because they knew exactly which car he was going to be in. They knew exactly when the convoy was going there. They had all the details necessary to singularly hit this man, right? And it just really, like I said, it floored me. I was very shook by that. And 6 months into my deployment, Obama came on the stage, the master-in-chief. And the president, this is the man we're supposed to listen to. This is the man who is our leader. And he said that he had pulled all combat troops out of Iraq. And mind you, we were not there on a specific combat mission. 6 months into my deployment, we offset from Operation Iraqi Freedom to Operation New Dawn. And Obama comes on the stage because it's re-election, right? And he says, we pulled all combat troops out of Iraq. And I'm sitting there with the 3rd Infantry Division, right? And I'm just
like, excuse me, sir, did you forget somebody?
I pulled my sergeant aside and I said, hey, man, like, aren't we a combat troop? Like, I ain't no pogue. A pogue is a person other than grunt.
Right.
It's you know what I'm saying? So I was like, I'm not a pogue. And
he had military vet too. He was SK, South Korea, 2017.
That's right. So they had changed our name in the documents, in the books, and on post, they painted over our sign and changed it to the 3rd Advise and Assist Brigade. So, like, legally, Obama was not lying, but it just frustrated me, man. Like, why not tell the truth? Why not just say we had offset the mission, you know, and our
bureaucracy at its
advising and
finest.
assisting. I just feel like details matter, and I realized then, like how these politicians lie and twist the truth for their personal gain, you know?
Right.
Obama, as much as he was a Democrat, and a lot of people will recognize him and say, like, oh, he was a good president, he dropped more bombs than Bush. You know, he killed just as many people as Bush. He was the greater of two evils because the American people were incapacitated to see his evil. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we could. This is, you know, the corruption of our government really starts way before we were even a thought in the living organism process here. But it just really gives an eye-opening perspective to, you know, a controversy to what you grew up in believing and what you were essentially taught to believe, to what you were learning on your own.
Some artists wait to be discovered. Others step into the shadows and take their shot. Welcome to Mic Check Thursday, hosted by the host with the ghost, Bounceball Boogie. Every week, the Boogeyman opens the gates, searching for the realest voices in the underground. No industry politics, no fake hype, just raw talent and honest feedback. Think you've got a hot track? For just 99 coins, submit your song and get one guaranteed play live. Get reviewed by Bounceball Boogie and the full panel of creatures from the Boogieverse. And if your sound hits different, you might earn something most artists never get: a personal invitation to a spotlight interview on the official Underground Nation podcast. This isn't a contest. This is a gateway to exposure, to community, to your next level. Join us live for Mic Check Thursday. Bring your track, bring your courage, and step into the Boogieverse. The Underground is watching. Are you ready to be heard?
I am the anti-Rex prophet, here to bring you a message. Your government is rotten. Anti-Semitic rhetoric. It's rotten from the inside. Check the beat, I don't beg, I indict. Kings get nervous when I restore sight. Truth too sharp for the throne to digest. I don't preach peace, I pronounce what's next. Solomon frowned while wisdom was fresh. God in the temple, but rot in the flesh. Turn from the law, wines multiply. Built those two idols, altar when tried. Full lock and fire drums cover cries. Children as payment, blood for the lies. Was it half the price? Look, spirit and breath, not just the body, they auction the depth. Profit fell slow, not all at one time. First he bent more roast, then he fetched fine. God left the house when the smoke wasn't clean. King kept the ground, but he lost what it means. That's how it starts when the power gets lonely. Wisdom gets quiet, ambition gets holy. I don't make it a covenant stone. Empires don't fall, they rot from the throne. American bred, communist clone, Bolshevik run, Zionist owner. Anti-Semitic rhetoric. Anti-Semitic rhetoric. Go him.
Gosh, it feels good to be the good guy. Right. Shapiro's being taken away.
Go him. Anti-Semitic rhetoric. Anti-Semitic rhetoric. Go him.
Gosh, it feels good to be the good guy.
Right.
Shapiro's being taken away.
Go him. Government run, biblical script. Go idolatry, Baphomet worship. Satanic matrix, the devil's in bed with it. Patterns repeated, the crown is inherited. Same old sin, different emperors wearing it. Power says pagan. Optics and glass. traded in silence. Sin gets rewarded while citizens taxed. God gets suppressed when the metrics divine break. Virtue gets avoided by Kabbalah contracts. They feed us the facts just to poison the brain. Ryan the signal, it mutates the pain. Lives loop daily till sanity strain. Our thoughts on a leash is the point at the chain. Degeneracy sponsored and put on display. Rot isn't random, it's funded that way. What poisons the culture gets lifted in pain. The thought is the source, is the well of decay. And from that well it infects every age. Babies get molded before they can pray. What's pure gets erased, what's broken gets paid. The future gets shaped by the idols they raise. American bred, communist clone, Bolshevik run, Zionist owned.
Anti-Semitic rhetoric. Anti-Semitic rhetoric. Anti-Semitic rhetoric. Go him. Gosh, it feels good to be the good guy. Right. Shapiro's team taken away. Go him. Anti-Semitic rhetoric. Anti-Semitic rhetoric. Go him. Gosh, it feels good to be the good guy. Right. Shapiro's team taken away. Go him.
Look who's laughing now.
Anti-Semitic rhetoric. Shapiro's team taken away. Good guy. Right. Anti-Semitic rhetoric. Go him.
So, I mean, let's fast forward a little bit. After you came home a little bit, what did working as a union steam lift teach you?
A bit that goes in between that. I came home very, very frustrated with the military, very frustrated with the government, right? Very distrustful of them. I kind of went the opposite direction. Instead of being a patriot, I became a criminal, right? I became a drug addict, and I dove into addiction.
We're not going to glaze over that. Let's listen. Yes, absolutely.
I dove into addiction, and I hung out with a lot of very, very not good people, career criminals, one would call them, and I became homeless. I was a homeless drug addict for 7 years, hanging out with, the worst people imaginable, drug dealers, pimps, you name it. I slept at hotel rooms. I slept in trap houses. I knew as long as I had a bag, I wouldn't have to sleep in the street. And that's what drove me to it was just an obsession. Addiction is a beast. And
it really is. So many people fight it daily, too.
In 2017, I got clean and sober. I was arrested, and that period of incarceration, forced me into sobriety. And I looked in the mirror one day, and I just realized that I was disgusted at who I had become. I didn't like the person in the mirror, and I knew that it was a spiritual awakening. It felt like God reached down and slapped me in the face. I swear to God, it was.
Do you feel like a lot of people that come out of the military might be a big reason as to their personal decline immediately after? I see a lot of homelessness and addicts and just really down on your luck and in a really bad place mentally. Do you think that our military system and our politics could be a big contributing factor to that?
Well, you got to think about it. There's nothing to be proud about in military service. Even during the push in Iraq and Afghanistan, they gave us this story that we were, fighting terrorism, but we're in their country. And if you understand how terrorism works, for the most part, terrorism is when you have a weaker force fighting a stronger force. I mean, these people had AKs, but for the most part, they had sticks and stones, they would make improvised explosive devices from what they would find in trash cans. I mean, it's not hard to do that if you understand what you're doing. But this is a low-tech society fighting a high-tech stormtrooper force. And they were doing so to get us out of their land. And it was always very apparent to me that had the tables been turned, I would be in the same shoes as them. I would be doing the same thing they were doing to get an imposing nation out of my country.
Right.
So I understood from a very early stage that these people were no different than me in a lot of ways. And there's no patriotism behind that. And any individual who has like a level of cognitive like consciousness is going to immediately see that. And like I said, I joined the Army because I wanted to be proud of what I was doing with my life. And when you crush that pride and there's nothing left, like what do you have left? Do you have alcoholism? You have addiction? You can't look in the mirror. I think that these are huge driving factors to what leads military vets towards addiction and homelessness is just a lack of pride in what they do. That's something that is very important to me as a steam fitter welder, is I have a productive job. Like, I create wealth. I have pride in what I do. Like, I'm not doing it just because the client needs a working system. I physically love what I do. I take pride in the finished product. If it's subpar, like, that pains me. And there's a level of having pride in what you do in a day-to-day, in your production, pride in your own production that really, for one thing, you can talk about, like, biologically, you have serotonin that gets produced through, like, completing something and having pride in it.
Right.
You know, and when there's no serotonin produced, you're left with depression, which leads to addiction. I mean,
dopamine plays a big factor in that, too. The completion of that, yes, I did it. You big things. Well, yeah, I mean, when you deprive somebody of that, then you're left with nothing.
When you blow up a country and, like, your friends are taken from you and there's no pride behind it, like just think about like, how would that make you feel? You know, like, there's just no pride in actual, the end product of military service. Like, you can be proud that you joined or, like, served your nation. There's, like, I'm not attacking the individual soldier. I'm attacking the end point of the system, which is subjugation and destruction. You know, our industrial war machine works synergistically with the capitalist Federal Reserve. You know, like,
right.
The idea that we sell debt for profit, we print interest-bearing notes for profit. That's how the Federal Reserve functions, right? So if we're incentivized, if our core function is to sell debt for profit, we are driven towards where debt is always the highest when a nation's life is threatened. In a war...
You're absolutely right about that.
Our economy is incentivized to be in a perpetual state of war. And when you look at history, like, over the last 50 years, like, how has our economy been? In a perpetual state of war. We've been in Vietnam. We've been in a Cold War. There's always proxy wars popping off. Like, we've been bombing Somalia for, 20 years for no fucking reason? Like, then when you talk about the wars in the Middle East, like, it gets a little bit more complex, but the connection to the petrodollar absolutely plays a huge part in that. You know, we're also incentivized to stabilize the global price of oil, which is so rich in that nation, and then we just happen to be there and have military bases there. It's almost maddening looking at this with a logical viewpoint that you can't see. Like, it's just obscenely corrupt, and it's in your face constantly. There's no pride in what our military does.
There really isn't. I feel that it's not just the military. It goes back again to, like, what we were discussing. It's our government system in general, the politics behind all of it. There's nothing for the people anymore. I feel like it's just a big chess game. It's a big chess game, and it's all control, power, strategic moves, and play, and we're pawns.
There's this world beneath the surface, a place where raw talent lives, where voices go unheard until now. Welcome to Underground Nation, the home of the unheard, the stage for the next wave, the movement where artists, entrepreneurs, and creators rise from the shadows and take their place in the spotlight. Head over to underground-nation.com
Download the app today and step inside the experience. Dive into exclusive news articles, unfiltered reviews, powerful podcasts, and a full collection of magazine issues showcasing talent from across the globe. Discover your next favorite artist before the world catches on.
I mean, I look at everything as a level of like there's a health bar, you know, like in a video game, but that health bar represents our power, and they've been whittling that down lower and lower. The more our currency inflates, the less money you make per hour, the less power you have. Like money, power, and time are all synonymous in this equation, and people don't really understand or see that, you know, like the biggest problem in our nation, and the thing that would simultaneously solve 90% of the issues politically, is if we ended the Federal Reserve and ended money in politics, which those two things are the same thing in my eyes, because there's such a thing as, there's three faces of labor. You have productive labor, you have parasitic labor, and you have artistic labor. So productive labor is labor that creates wealth. That's like anybody who has a job that builds something. And there's like, for instance, like a cashier technically is a productive labor because they're adding to like some sort of product. It's a necessary service for this business to move product, right? So technically that does add to productive labor. It's, even though they're not like immediately producing something, it technically is productive labor. And then you have artistic labor, which is music, art, film, all these different things. Artistic labor is easier to corrupt than productive labor, right? But artistic labor has a value, even though it doesn't immediately create wealth. Like, it adds to the culture of our nation. And it is important, and it has a value that society ascribes to it. So that is in the middle of this equation. You have productive labor creates the wealth. It's the hardest to manipulate, and it is the most important. Then you have artistic labor, which is easier to manipulate, you know, I would say equally important in its own way. And then you have parasitic labor. So that's like banking. That's like any any labor, any job that has no wealth production involved in it. Like, if you're facilitating transactions and you're inflating the currency through like banking, there's no, like, if I were to invest in a bank, that bank could go under tomorrow. Like, who's to say? But then
you don't know where your stuff is.
If I was to invest in something that was producing a physical product, and that physical product was a necessity, I know that my money's safe, right?
Exactly. So, smart decisions.
And for instance, to go back to the 2008 housing crisis, they were exclusively bailing out banks, parasitic capital, which was furthering the crisis. Because if you, like, another interesting, you know, the quantitative easing was coined after World War II by the Austrian School of Economics, which rebuilt Germany. And the way that they rebuilt it was by investing in productive labor exclusively. And so when Alan Greenspan called what he was doing during the 2008 housing crisis quantitative easing, but was solely investing in parasitic capital, he was mincing words, and he was conflating an original term, and he was redefining it in his new parasitic way. And I can't state how important it is to recognize these three separate forms of labor. And each form of labor has been captured. For instance, you have, you know, a lot of unions were captured by organized crime, you know, in the I want to get these dates wrong, but quite some time ago. You have the artistic labor, which was the music industry, for instance, was captured fully by organized crime after Prohibition. You know, that's actually where the term tour comes from, you know, when they prohibited alcohol and organized crime was exclusively running the speakeasies. They had to have artists playing in the speakeasies, and they realized quickly that people get bored. So they started cycling the artists through their speakeasies across the nation, and the tour was born. And if you know,
that really gives a big, going back to how music and the artist perspective, everything, that how much that impacts everything. So is going, kind of, when did you realize that music, that your voice in the music industry could actually aid in your message?
I've always loved music. It always has instilled like an emotional reaction inside me. It's always been an escape. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I would, just to put my headphones on and go into another world. And I was obsessed with, learning everything I could about the artists that I liked. And I looked up to them, and I dreamed of someday being like a vocalist in like a guitar band, but I never played the guitar. I played the clarinet as a kid, and I just never really had
French horn.
I never had anything to say,
Right.
And when I realized that there was no book written about labor back, let's turn back to my story. So after I was an addict for 7 years, I joined the workforce after I got out of jail and and that led me to work for a concrete construction company, which they took advantage of me. And they didn't want to further my education in any way. They were like, no, you'll dig holes and you'll like it. And I was like, bro, I can't dig holes for the rest of my life. That's not a feasible way to make a living. You want me to dig holes when I'm 50 years old? Like, I can't do that. That's crazy.
Right.
So I wanted an education, and the union offered that to me for free. They said, all you have to do is show up and pass a test, and we'll teach you everything you need to know. And that is more valuable to me than any amount of money. And the fact that, union welders make over twice as much as non-union welders, I mean, like, that's a bonus, right? But learning the trade is invaluable. And I realized that working for this non-union company that took advantage of me financially, and they took advantage of my ignorance. And that's what these corporations and these politicians do, is they take advantage of the American producer's ignorance. They don't wish us to have an education. Like, everything out of their mouth is a Barnum statement. It's a lie designed to instill some kind of emotional feeling through rhetoric. And which is kind of off tangent. I don't trust any politician that is not immediately saying end the Fed, and none of them are, which proves that they've all been captured. Even the ones that feign to be on our side and may say one thing that we like, they have no questions about the Federal Reserve. They have no questions about the debt-based bank that we're living in. And if our founding fathers were here today, they would hang all of them. They would all be hung for treason.
They're turning over in their graves right now. Them wooden teeth are just a chattering right now.
The Federal Reserve is a replication of the same bank that we fought a Revolutionary War to get away from. They say that we fought the war over the tax on tea, which is hilarious because we had the Revolutionary War in 1776, but just like we were talking about earlier, the date of the crisis is not the cause of the crisis. So to understand why we fought a war against Britain for our independence, you have to rewind the clock back to 1764. The Currency Act was passed by Britain, and the Currency Act made it illegal for the colonies to print their own money and required the colonies to pay any debt to the crown in gold. The colonies had no gold mines. They were singularly farming communities, and they had been utilizing a primitive form of labor-backed currency known as colonial script, which allowed them to circumvent the British debt-based bank, because Britain was using inflation and their debt-based banking system to force all of their colonies to finance their wars abroad. And so,
sound familiar, people? Sound familiar?
It's crazy, right? The same debt-based bank. And our founding fathers, so when they made it illegal for America to print their labor-backed colonial script, it forced America into a Great Depression equal or worse than the modern Great Depression that we recognize in the 1930s. So, like, the fact that this is not written in your history books is a control of the narrative. Like, the fact that somebody would say the Revolutionary War was fought over taxes or tea is ignorance. It's pure ignorance, and they teach us this in school. Like
smoke screens, diversion tactics to draw your attention to focus on a big old Boston Tea Party in a harbor, so you don't know what's really going on behind the scenes.
And when people understand colonial script and how this labor-backed currency worked, like the only reason that they didn't use this as a currency for the nation after the revolution was it was hard to nationalize. They didn't have computing power to crunch the numbers for the national product in real time. Like, we have no reason not to use a labor-backed currency system currently, other than the enrichment of the parasite class. That is the only reason. And the parasite class owns all politicians, and by paying for non-productive labor, like lobbying politicians, that is immediately increasing inflation, like through a secondary effect of there is only so much money in the system. Even as they inflate it, dollar bills have a number, and that number is equatable. And so when you pay a certain form of labor, you are immediately taking away from the other forms of labor. Them lobbying these political parties and these various like laws and whatnot, they're taking money away from us, crushing our wage, crushing the money available to us, and that is another like kind of inflation. It's not direct inflation, but it's inflation through removing money from the system. You see, inflation is not caused by printing money. Inflation is caused by that newly printed money removing wealth from the system. And if you don't think these politicians that are receiving these immense amounts of dollars are not removing wealth from the system, you're mistaken. That's what they're doing with this money. They're buying houses, they're buying mansions. And if you don't realize the removal of the item from the system, the house, the car, it inflates it increases all the rest of the prices for us.
Some artists wait to be discovered. Others step into the shadows and take their shot. Welcome to Mic Check Thursday, hosted by the host with the ghost, Bounceball Boogie. Every week, the boogeyman opens the gates, searching for the realest voices in the underground. No industry politics, no fake hype, just raw talent and honest feedback. Think you've got a hot track? For just 99 coins, submit your song and get one guaranteed play live. Get reviewed by Bounceball Boogie and the full panel of creatures from the Boogieverse. And if your sound hits different, you might earn something most artists never get: a personal invitation to a spotlight interview on the official Underground Nation podcast. This isn't a contest. This is a gateway to exposure, to community, to your next level. Join us live for Mic Check Thursday. Bring your track, bring your courage, and step into the Boogieverse. The Underground is watching. Are you ready to be heard?
You know, there's another term that I would like everybody to understand called the Cantillon effect, which was originally defined by the Austrian School of Economics. Cantillon effect means the individuals closest to the money printer are shielded from inflation because they get this newly printed money, and it is their act of removing the physical wealth from the system that causes the inflation. They are shielded from it. So these parasitic bankers, they don't even feel inflation. They're shielded from it. That's how fucked up it is. Like, we create all the wealth and we get all of the detriment, you know? We take all the risk. We work for our money and they get money out of thin air.
It's amazing when you put it into perspective and you actually shine light and start peeling back the layers. it really turns, you can actually truly see the novel that unfolds. It's not just, a couple, posters or a pamphlet or even a magazine. We are talking novels, series of novels of the depth that gets into it. Speaking of on the novels, what led up to you wanting to write a book about this?
Again, just like I've always loved music, I've always loved literature. My adopted parents forced me to read at a very young age, and it was a lot of fiction books. But, I loved watching historical documentaries. I loved reading. And that was probably the first thing I ever wanted to be, was an author as a child, I remember telling my adopted mom that's what I wanted to be. And it just wasn't, I felt like it wasn't in the cards for me. I didn't have anything. I wrote a lot of short stories in high school, but I didn't have anything that I felt was like needed, right? And in joining the union and understanding like how workers' rights functioned and how I was being taken advantage of, and having these people lift me out of poverty and give me an education, not just around my craft, but around the history of union politics, I realized that the fight was the worker against the corporation. Like, it was so clear to me. And that just led me to start investigating and learning more. And I worked with an individual who really taught me about the banking systems and how they functioned. And I felt like that was like God putting somebody in my path to help propel me towards this, and my book started as just a bunch of shit I wrote on my whiteboard, about like the incentive structure and matrix of a labor-backed currency versus a debt-based currency, and like all of the pros and cons, and like all of the pros are for the financial elite in the debt-based system, and all the cons are for us. And it's reversed in a labor-backed system. It's not even reversed. It aligns the incentives of the corporation with that of the working class. Because look, people talk about healthcare like, oh, we want free healthcare. Look, if the wealth created by the nation replaces as the variable of the petrodollar, then they are incentivized to keep the producing class healthy, because our health is directly related to the amount of wealth we produce through labor. So
yes,
it incentivizes the corporation to give us health care, because the wealth created is the variable that determines the value of our currency.
Isn't that just crazy how you put that in perspective, though? Like, literally, your health depends on your dollar sign attached to you.
Well, so that's the thing. Like, in the current system, like, they're not going to pay for our health because the wealth that we create has no basis on the wealth that they make. So they're there to extract our wealth. So the less powerful we are, the more weak we are, the more they can extract, right? And in the system I'm talking about, our labor and what we create is directly connected to their ability to increase profit for shareholders, right? If we create more wealth, then their shareholders will their money will have more value. So a labor-backed currency system aligns the incentives of the corporate entity with the producing class in so many ways. It's a currency propelled towards peace. It's a currency that wants to be at a zero national debt. It wants to build, you get what I'm saying? It's so crazy.
Absolutely. It is, again, after another. So when did you actually begin to formulate and get all of this together to be able to publish it to your audience? And who was your target audience that you were intending to be able to see this?
I was writing this book for those who work with their hands, the producers of this nation, anyone that's confused about politics, because politics is designed to confuse you. And I wanted to educate people on why the system was corrupt. Like, I wanted to have facts, cited sources. I wanted there to be no question of a doubt. I wanted a book to be able to be presented to a judge in a court of law, and that judge to be like, yeah, this
Here you go, sir.
Yeah, I wanted them to be, so I wrote
your ass
in the form of an indictment. I cited all my sources and I checked all my facts. And I wanted to be able to educate everyone in my life, every person with a job on the principles I was talking about. And it gets a little crazy because I was directly influenced by Gottfried Feder, the German economist, right? This was the man that tutored Hitler in the economy. And we vilified the Germans through lies. And a lot of people will turn their brain off as soon as I say that H word. But here's the thing. He was the only person who put a Rothschild in prison. The Weimar Republic was experiencing the same inflation that we're experiencing now. So I fully believe that Britain knew that the labor-backed currency colonial script was the key to unlock their inflationary prison of their debt-based bank. And they knew that if they were going to institute a Federal Reserve debt-based bank in America, they were going to have to vilify the only solution. So it's very clear when you look at the history. The Federal Reserve was created in 1913. The ADL, which would protect it, was created in 1913. World War I starts in 1914. World War I removed the power structure of the Austrian Empire to create a vacuum, which they then fanned with the inflation of the Weimar Republic to create a labor dollar revolution that they could then crush and vilify through lies and propaganda. The whole thing was a carefully orchestrated act to vilify the only solution to the Federal Reserve for damn near 100 years. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody's even written a book or talked about labor-backed currency until my book. And it is just boggling to me. You know, I don't speak about Germany or National Socialism in my book, but I write about the principles of their economists in a way that would reach people who have been brainwashed and propagandized against what I just said.
This summer, it's all about how you show up. Clean, bold, confident, every angle. Built to stand out. Two-piece energy, made to turn heads. Details that hit. Front to back. One piece, two-piece, up to 5X. Made for real bodies, real confidence. No distractions, no extras. Just the look and how it makes you feel. Only $34.99. Step into your moment. Make a splash. Own the pool.
Essentially, this isn't, just a novel. This isn't just a read. You quote, you fact check, you put all of this actually documented, legit. You can go research on your own exactly what you read in this book. Your audience can go and look up and dive into depth on their own and follow up with this.
I wrote the book as, as an encyclopedia on the history of the American economy. It's like an indictment. I present the situation, I introduce myself, and I begin the indictment. And the meat and potatoes of the indictment is me tracking the national debt through 19 presidential case files. Since the creation of the Federal Reserve, I have some sections in between where I explain some things. I explain the cause of the Great Depression. I explain the Rhodes Scholarship Program. I have a lot of little tidbits that I'm like, this needs further explanation, so I have an intermission and so on and so forth. It's a long book. It's 513 pages. And so there's three parts to this book. There's the indictment. There is the I call it the original sin, right? So there's a part about the history of our nation where I bring it back to Alexander Hamilton and how he pushed the central bank in America and how Andrew Jackson defeated him in on every battleground. Andrew Jackson was a hero, by the way.
Oh, Andrew Jackson, absolutely, by far one of my favorite presidents. Sorry, love Andrew Jackson. I have to lead that with they try to vilify Andrew Jackson by saying he mass murdered Indians. No.
Here's what they don't understand. He absolutely did. But Britain was giving the Indians guns with one
for reason. He mass murdered for reason.
Well, they were there to shoot Americans. They said you can have these guns, but here's the the immense, like, disturbing part of them doing that. Like, Britain had been doing this to third world nations for quite some time. When you give a third world nation advanced technology, if that third world nation has no ability to produce that technology themselves, they become enslaved to you. And once you pull that technology away, they will be crushed by whoever they're opposing. So by Britain doing them, they signed their death warrant. Britain is the villain in this story, not Andrew Jackson, not America. And they conflate history so those that don't understand these concepts can be like, oh, well, he killed Indians, he's a bad guy. Like,
chess.
Andrew Jackson paid off our debt. He paid off our national debt. He fought the banks and won. And that's where we come to the Civil War, where the British and French Rothschilds funded both sides at 28% interest. They funded specifically the most extreme on both sides, which we see in today's politics. Nobody in the middle gets funding. Only the most extreme of both parties get funded, of both sides. Yeah. Like Antifa gets funded. Right-wing extremists get funded. And we just saw something at the Democrats just dropped something where they were funding like some sort of
who knows, but they can't even look in there. Yeah, they can't even take care of people in our own country who are the backbone of the country, of the government themselves. Without the people, like you said, that who are they siphoning all of this money from? They're not out there working. They're not out there doing this stuff, but they don't want to take care of their own, and it's very saddening.
The whole purpose of the Civil War was, so for instance, in 1776, we fight and we win, right? 1812, the War of 1812, Britain tried to reconquer us, and we repelled them because they had been weakened by the French Revolution, which was inspired by our revolution, by the way. So Britain's terrified of what we had done, and they needed us to be back under their control. So then they tried to lobby, after they could not conquer us through 1812, they tried to lobby for a central bank, and Andrew Jackson strikes that down, right? They repeal the charter, and then you have, excuse me, I said that reverse. We repealed the charter, and that's what caused the War of 1812, because there was no British central bank revoted on. That is what led to the War of 1812. They're like, we can't capture them economically, we'll conquer them, and then we repel them. And then Andrew Jackson then pays off the debt. They tried to assassinate him, and that was by 1830 we had paid off the debt. And then the Civil War, right? The whole purpose of the Civil War was to incur a massive debt and bring us back under British banking control. And that's exactly what happened. The Civil War was the last time our debt had ever been paid off, and it has never been paid off since. And ever since the Civil War, Britain has funded our collegiate system. They've subverted our political overseer class to make them overseers on a debt colony, right? And it was just one step after the other, right? And then you have these.
I don't really think people understand that we don't own our currency. We don't own our stuff. America is not in control of the banking systems going on here.
Can I pause this interview for 1 second? I'll be right back. I have to.
Yes.
Thank you.
You can edit this out. Love you, mutilate. Get rapping. All right. I'm gonna get out. I am definitely not asking that question. Go right back in. That's a good.
Sorry about that.
You're fine. So how does your book, The Labor Dollar Revolution, tie directly into your music? When did the music part go into your book?
I've always, like I said, wanted to be a musician, and I've always loved music. It's always really spoke to me. And while I was writing the book, I actually wrote my song Debt Beast. I had just finished the chapter on the Kabuki bipartisan theater. I had been writing about all these presidents, and all this shit was just rolling around in my head. And I was like, man, I need to like I write a lot of poetry. I've always written a lot of poetry. And we're talking about Andrew Jackson, and he talks about the bank is a hydra. And I just had this like word in my head, the debt beast. I was like, man, like I'm going to make a song.
Like a hydra monster.
And I'm going to call it Debt Beast. So I write this song, and I tried to record it in Band Labs, and it was terrible. It was really bad.
Oh, God.
And yes, I'm like, you know what? I need a microphone. So I purchased this Shure SMD microphone, and I got a Focusrite Solo audio interface, and I had already been like messing around with the MPC at that time. You know, so the book, what led me to write the book was I injured my back, and I couldn't work for a year. And I knew that I had to do something productive with this time. I knew I had, and I was racking my brain, like, what can I do? Like, what can I want to help? I want to add something of value to my nation. And I just felt like the labor dollar revolution just hit me, you know, like I had been, like I said, making all these crazy lunatic drawings on my whiteboard. And I knew there was no book about labor-backed currency. And I knew that the national debt was an adequate measure to track the crime against the producing class. And it just hit me, you know, the labor dollar revolution. And I started writing that day. And then the debt beast, you know, when I finished the chapter on the Kabuki bipartisan theater, I ended up writing The Debt Beast, and I had to pause writing my book for a couple weeks while I tried to figure out how to record music.
Oh, that was a whole process. That was a wonderful journey. I am loving watching your progress and success in this music career, going from, like you're saying, from like the beginning, the nitty gritty, to where you are now, and the messages that you're delivering with this is astronomically amazing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who will have certain things to say about my music or my content, and a lot of them, you know, will not investigate my content beyond the surface level. They'll use hateful monikers to speak about me or my ideology without actually ever speaking with me about what I believe in or what I think. And it's frustrating for me, because when I see that, I just see a slave that loves his slavery. You know, hate without investigation is the definition of ignorance. You know, like,
why do you think most people don't question the system?
Well, because they've been fed lies by the government. Like, they think National Socialism is a hateful ideology, and there are many hateful individuals that will carry that banner, but they're ignorant in of themselves. You know, like, in our government tries to fan these fires, you know, like there is a wage discrepancy between white and black workers. By far, there's a huge wage discrepancy. But who creates that wage discrepancy? Is it the white workers, or is it the government? And then who tells those people what the problem is? You know, like they'll say, like, oh, you know, like it's the white people who are the problem. So you have all of these individuals who are being attacked on both sides, and they're fighting each other, and they don't look up to see the person who's, you know, handing guns to both sides, telling them to shoot each other. They're the problem. They're the problem. Like,
absolutely.
No, motherfucker. Like, you're the problem. You're running my fucking country into the ground. Like, you are the problem.
Yes, but most people, you're right, most people don't want to realize that. It's a big message to try to deliver.
Looking for bold, high-quality merch that hits harder than your next show? At Smokin' Barrel Apparel, we fire up the best in screen printing and promotional gear, crafted for bands, artists, and creators who refuse to blend in. From shirts to banners, from tour drops to custom promo runs, we've got your back with the best prices around. Learn more today at Smokin'. That's SMOKINBA.com. Official sponsor of the Underground Nation podcast, supporting the heartbeat of the underground, one print at a time. Contact Ryan Chavez for more information. Smokin' Barrel Apparel, where your brand meets the barrel.
Do you ever feel pressure to water down your message to reach a bigger audience?
You know, I at all times feel like my message is going to be misconstrued. I argue with both sides constantly. Like, I feel like everybody hates me sometimes. You know, I feel like it's a very lonely place, you know, understanding history, or like, and it's everything has to be this like huge explanation because I can't ever just say a couple words because they'll always be taken out of context, you know, like you say the H word, or you say like, and all of a sudden people are like calling you all kinds of names under this
trigger responses.
Yeah, they've tied emotions where there should be logic, and I try to like comment on that, and it's every day in my life. It's every day, everywhere I go. Anytime I open my mouth, somebody looks at me like I'm insane, and I have to be educated in the principles that I speak about. Otherwise, you know, I'll be attacked. And
well, going on that, you know, the feeling of attack and everything. Do you think that maybe that kind of led you on your path to your rescue?
You know, that's what made me fall in love with my wife. The rescue business has always been her pride and passion, and that's what really, like I said, made me fall in love with her. I've always kind of lived by the words, be the change you want to see in this world. You know, even at my lowest of lows, I tried to be a light somewhere in somebody's life. You know, you talk about trying to be a drug dealer with morals, silly that is, you know, but like, I have some stories and like some people are beyond saving, and God never gave up on me. And I'm so grateful to him for that, you know, and ultimately I believe that my perspective in that avenue of addiction and where I come from is so valuable, and I'm so grateful for the struggles I've been given, but the rescue has always been, like I said, my wife's pride and passion, and it made me fall in love with her because she's giving back to these animals who cannot take care of themselves. They would be dead without her. I mean, she's saved hundreds and hundreds of dogs. She's been running this rescue for over 15 years. And, you know, I just always wanted to stand up for the little guy. I've always felt like, you know, like I don't want to be on the side of someone who's just like, I don't want to, you know, these are banking entities. Like, how easy would it for me? It wouldn't be easy, but I could go to school and be a lawyer. I can go to school and do all kinds of shit and just fucking join them, dude. Like, that's possible. I'm not an idiot. Like I'm sure that if I devoted the time to it, I could pass the bar, but I just don't agree with that kind of production. I don't think it's necessary, and I think that it is an ultimate detriment to our society. You know,
it loses sight of the little guy.
Exactly. You know, and I'm sure there's lawyers who do help the little guy, but I love my job and I love what I do. I love, you know, adding.
That's absolutely amazing. I'm very glad that you and your wife are continuing this and offering all of that hope. You know, goes back to pride and hope. If you're not proud of what you're doing, there's no hope for the future of it.
I absolutely agree.
And that is an amazing message in itself. How do you respond to people who dismiss your message entirely?
You know, there's a biblical saying, don't feed pearls to the pigs. And a friend of mine told me that, and I just try to remember that when people just dismiss me. It's kind of like banging your head into the wall. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't let it drink. Or you can't make it drink, right? So I try to, wherever possible, educate people. I believe in education over hate. I've never explicitly hated an individual for who they are or what they believe in without at least attempting to explain my point of view or bring them over to where I am. You know, and even then, I don't really have a lot of hate for other human beings except for the slave masters that rule us. Holy shit, I hate them. But you know, if you work with your hands, I believe that you're on my side, or at least you're in the same category as me. If you work for your money, like, we're all slaves. We're all slaves. and if they can't understand my message, they've been brainwashed to love their slavery, right?
Mm-hmm. I can feel you on that. So you push education over hate, but do you think your message ever risks dividing people instead of uniting them?
Man, that's a big question. I don't know. I think that I tried to write my book in a way where it would apply to everybody. I'm very proud of my race and my culture, but that's just where I come from. Like everybody comes from a different place, and they have every right to be proud and love where they come from. I try not to push division. I try to push unity. And it really, like I said, and like I'll continue to say, it is the producer versus the parasite. And there's a lot more that goes into, just history and where we all do come from. And I just believe that logic and history trumps emotions and feelings every day. And when we're divided, it's usually due to the former and not the latter, right? So we're divided through emotions and feelings, not logic and history,
I feel that. I really do. As someone advocating for workers, what's the biggest financial mistake you see everyday people making?
Man, just credit cards and debt in general. Any amount of interest is going to reduce your future earnings, and that's why they make it so accessible. That's why you get so much junk mail. That's why you get all of this. Sometimes it's impossible to not go into debt, and you have to build your credit. But it's a trap, dude. Like the more debt you incur, the less your future earnings are worth, and the more power they extract. And if they can keep you in a level of poverty, then they can keep you from opposing them. So, for instance, I would not have been able to produce that book had I not been injured and had a year off of work. If I was forced to work for that whole year, there would be no book, right? If I made a more adequate wage, I would be able to take time off and write something like that, But by keeping us in a level where we need to work and we're paycheck to paycheck, they prevent us from ever producing like literature or things to oppose them in any meaningful way. They prevent us from organizing. I don't understand people who go to like the No Kings protests. Like you can afford to take time off work. Like what,
Right. Like how should the average person start taking control of their financial situation? Just not get into that debt, not to accrue all of that.
I mean, it starts by measuring the input and the output of the system. Just like with fat loss, you need to judge your input and your output, and you need to make sure that you're not living above your means. There's always, like even with sobriety, like when I first got clean and sober, I knew that I needed short-term goals and I needed long-term goals, and I needed to have like short-term goals that were achievable to help build momentum, right? Otherwise, I was going to fall back into that pattern of addiction. And, like my first goal was to get a job. My second goal was, my first goal was to find housing. When I first got clean and sober, I slept in a homeless shelter for 2 weeks before I ended up getting some housing. And that was through like a Veterans Association, which I'm so grateful for. And I lived in a sober living house for 2 years, and then I gotten a job like right after I got that house, and that was that construction job doing concrete. And I was grateful for that for 2 years until I got into the union. And it was just, I was always striving forward, like I had gotten that concrete job and I was like, okay, this is good. This pays the bills, but I'm now thinking of my future. Like, what career do I want? And I remember like I had watched American Chopper as a kid, and mind you, they're welding on motorcycles, but I always thought welding was so cool. And I was like, how cool would that be to become a welder, And it led to me Googling the company I was working for. They did concrete and they did welding. So they would lay the pipe supports and then they would lay the pipe. And I would go to work and be in a hole watching them weld every morning thinking about fuck this holding and shit. I want to be doing that shit. That's so much dope. And eventually when my company wouldn't help me, I had to help myself. And I Googled welding union or welding school, and it turns out there's one right in my town. And I went and...
There you go.
Yeah, and it's just always trying to formulate a plan to better your position. And there's multiple different avenues you can better your position. You can better it physically through fitness, through stretching, through any kind of physical activity. You can better it spiritually by auditing your own emotions, your own life, and your own self through reflection. And you can better it productively with your job, with your career, with your income, with your education. Like, there's always different avenues that you can, and you need to be thinking about those different avenues, and you got to be very careful. I mean, this is just some advice that I would give an addict. You have to be very careful being stagnant. Like, if you're not...
I was just about to say that, yes, you got to keep in mind aspect of being humble, but keep your growth going.
And it goes back to the dopamine and the serotonin. Like, when you become stagnant, you become depressed. Like, we live in this oppressive, like, infrastructure. Like, everything around us is so disconnected from nature. So depression becomes our natural state when we're not actively working to increase our serotonin and dopamine. It's being crushed by where we live.
I feel you on that one. Now, if you could teach one concept to the entire world, what would it be?
That we all have the ability to learn anything. That there is no roadblock in learning. There is only where do you start, right? So everything starts with something, and it's kind of like your introduction to where you are in your education and like what you need to learn. And the sky is the limit, but I mean, it's it's a simple concept, but it's true,
No, you are absolutely right. It's a simple concept, but I feel that that's one that's overlooked and underrated. You're absolutely correct on that one.
And
what does freedom?
Because we're afraid. Like, fear is what prevents us from learning.
Fear.
Cutting you off.
Fear. Afraid of the unknown, afraid of difference, afraid of change, afraid of moving forward. I feel you on that totally. What does freedom actually look like to you? Not politically, but personally.
I mean, personal freedom, I guess just freedom to create, freedom to just exist, freedom to pursue what you desire. And I have a very, very free life. I make decent money. I make pretty good money. I'm able to pursue what I want to pursue. I'm able to fund my passions to a certain extent that makes me feel fulfilled. And I see a lot of my friends who don't have the same kind of career that I have, that don't have a union job, that work menial construction jobs, non-union jobs, and they're constantly like fighting and struggling, and they don't have money to really pursue anything other than like just paying the bills. And like, my heart goes out to those individuals. They move out of the state, they leave, and it's just really heartbreaking for me. Like, not everyone has the drive to like get where I am, and I dream of a world where there's a national union where we're all taken care of and we all have the same rights that I'm granted through my union organization. Like, my union has fought to protect my rights and to establish a certain standard of living for us that is, other people don't have that, and they don't realize how important that is.
Right. Yeah. It's very important, and that's a very vivid image of freedom. And I think a lot of people get closed-minded, blinders to say, they get stuck in that middle, what you're talking about, just the not having the ability to be able to think or look different, being stuck in survival and pay your bills every day and not even fathom a goal or a dream because it's so unreachable at the moment. Yeah, they're stuck. I get that totally. We have one final question before we wrap this up. What message do you want your legacy to leave behind?
I don't know. I just want to do everything I can. I do intend to, I probably will not have children of my own. I probably will adopt just as I was adopted. I believe in giving back what we were given. That's a big part of my life and helping those who cannot help themselves. And I'm sure there's children out there who have been subject to equally, if not worse, than I was subjected to, and I know that's going to be a difficult thing. I want them to be able to be like, at least he tried.
At least I tried, Dad. Gold star,
Hey,
gold star.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I look back at my dad and I respect him for his level of man, what a hard worker, and he did everything he could to give me a chance at life. He went above and beyond. But I just feel like it's deeper than that, there's like a political aptitude that's lost on the generation before us. And because of the culmination of where our modern politics has taken, many of us, I know you included, are very awake to the absolute hogwash that is modern day politics.
Oh, who? Oh, I have rose-tinted glasses. What are you talking about?
Yeah, Democrat or Republican, do you want Baal or Moloch? Child sacrifice, or do you want to rule you? It's insane.
Oh goodness, that's a whole podcast. Thomas Freedom Jefferson has amazing podcast episodes that cover all of these topics, not just his book. Y'all, I mean, this can go on for hours. We could get stuck covering so many things right now. But, to have you doing what you're doing, and, your legacy is going to continue regardless because of the way that you are putting your voice out there and your message is being delivered, sir. And I just want to assure you on that one. It is being delivered, and even though ignorant ears may not hear right now, they will.
And I want to be the change I want to see in the world. I want, you know what I mean? I had something else really powerful to say, but I need a second. Yeah, man, I just want to be the change I want to see in the world. I want to be the person that I needed. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I want to be that person to other people, because there was many times in my life where I was looking for information or looking for logic or help. And I always have an open door, for anything, man. If anyone is struggling with addiction, if anyone wants to talk about history, if anyone wants to talk about music production, I will go above and beyond for anyone, man. I whatever I can do to help another individual. It is through altruism that we find relief, and that is so factual. And that's actually a principle of, by helping others, we get to escape ourselves for a little bit, and that's another reason why dog rescue helps so much.
That is amazing. That's truly amazing, and just a great introspective insight. And that right there is what it sounds like when someone chooses to think for themselves. Huge shout out to Thomas Freedom Jefferson for stepping into the fire and bringing a message that's meant to challenge, not comfort. If this conversation made you think, good. That's the point. Make sure you go show love, follow, and subscribe to Thomas Freedom Jefferson on all social and streaming platforms. And if you're hungry for more voices that are shaking the ground beneath the surface, visit underground-nation.com and tap into the movement. You already know this is where the unheard get heard. And if you are an artist or entrepreneur ready to step into that spotlight, send your information now to ugnpodcast@gmail.com. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. This platform is built for voices like yours. Until next time, stay dangerous, stay thinking, and don't let the surface fool you. I'm Feral Minx, and this is Underground Nation. Stay feral, everyone.
One last thing. My music is published under Anti-Rex Profit. Yeah, I know that my online moniker is Thomas Freedom Jefferson, but I publish my music under a separate name. Anti-Rex, and profit spelled with an F, as in profit. And that is because I'm anti a king profiting off of his people. I believe that the king has a responsibility, our leaders have a responsibility to the producing class, and that the producing class does not exist for their profit.
Absolutely. You guys heard that. Go scoop them up. Don't wait. Do it now. Much love, everybody.
All right. A massive thank you to Anti-Rex Prophet for stepping into the hot seat and sharing his story with the Underground Nation family. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't keep it to yourself. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Anti-Rex Prophet on all social media and streaming platforms so you can stay connected with everything he's got coming next. And while you're at it, head on over to underground-nation.com to discover more incredible artists clawing their way up from underneath the surface and making noise in the underground. Are you an artist, entrepreneur, creator, band, filmmaker, author, or visionary with a story to tell? Then what are you waiting for? Submit your information today to ugnpodcast@gmail.com, and you could find yourself sitting in the hot seat on a future episode of the Underground Nation podcast. And one more thing, wherever you're listening to this podcast, please take a moment to leave us a review. Then take a screenshot and send it in for a chance to receive a special shout out on a future episode. Your support helps us continue shining a spotlight on the voices that deserve to be heard. Until next time, keep your ears open, keep your mind sharp, and remember, Underground Nation, where the unheard become unforgettable. We'll catch you on the next ride beneath the surface.